Hey, peace, love, knowledge, and freedom, y'all. Hey, look, this episode is on some weird shit. I don't know what the fuck happened during the recording, but the end of the episode got cut off, so it's going to be a point where it just stops. And then along the way, my voice is going to speed up and it's going to get higher in octave and shit, and it's just going to be over time. It's not something that you're going to notice until you get to the end. Like, why the fuck he talking so fast and so high? Something happened with the recording. I don't know. I couldn't find it. I couldn't do anything. And y'all know these are in one take, so I can't re-record it. So I don't even know what was missing from the second half, but I just want to give that disclaimer. Still fuck with me though. And yeah, man, tap in. Peace, love, knowledge, and freedom. And welcome to another exciting episode of the Just Seen podcast. And today, as you've seen from the title, we're going to be talking about polarity, because we continuing on with the laws of the universe. We're going in on the law of polarity. Now, this is law number 10, if I'm not mistaken. So we've gone through the first 9, and now we're starting to, bring this shit to a close. We got two more episodes after this on the law of the universe, and then season 12 is going to be done. But the law of polarity it's like the law of relativity on 10. You know what I'm saying? It's a level up from the law of relativity. But the law of polarity is where we start to see what it means for opposites to attract. But even deeper than that is where we start to see what an opposite really is, right? When it comes to the laws of the universe and when it comes to universal law, same shit. Just felt like saying it a different way. But when it comes to the laws of polarity, right, and it being associated with opposites, it's opposites that are equal in equal and opposite in magnitude. So sometimes we look at things from a perspective where we look at differences, we look at similarities, we look at all of that shit. But when it comes to looking at the opposite, it's the same shit. It's the opposite sides of the same coin, right? That's what the law of polarity is going to show you, right? Where we know relativity is based off the experiencer, right? The law of polarity is more so about the experience. You feel me? Because the experiencer is the one who's going to determine, hey, this was a good event, this was a bad event, this is what it is, this blah, blah, blah. But the law of polarity is going to show what that experience actually was, you know what I'm saying? And show that this experience has duality within it, right? But even deeper than that, duality goes and ties into divinity as well, because I have an episode, I don't remember what it's called, but it's talking about singularity, duality, and divinity, right? Divinity is when singularity and duality come together. Right. This is where you'll hear me say shit like, from the one come the all, therefore the all is the one. The God of your enemy is your devil. Different things like that. But all of those quotes and euphemisms and shit like that tie into this law of polarity that we are experiencing on a regular basis all day long. But it comes into defining experience. Right. Because you can be in the same experience and it has a different look, but it's the same look. You know what I'm saying? Joy and pain, hate and love, those things are all the same thing. They're just expressed from a different magnitude. You know what I'm saying? Just like hot and cold, wet and dry. These things are the same, but they're opposites. Right? So when I say something is equal and opposite in magnitude, equal but opposite in magnitude, that's what that means. The magnitude of the thing is what is different, but it is equal in capacity to one another. You know what I'm saying? 100 degrees, I'm using this example because I use hot and cold. 100 degrees Fahrenheit and negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit are the same thing. It's Fahrenheit. You feel what I'm saying? But the description of the positivity or whatever is what's different. In mathematics, they call this absolute value. Right? The law of polarity is really going to be what defines absolute value from a mathematical perspective. So when people say, oh, this is metaphysical, this is esoteric, this is all of this shit, but you still got to be able to bring it back down into real conversations and real terminology, right? When things are polarized, right? One of the biggest things that are polarized are art. It's no matter what capacity and dynamic somebody sees the thing as, no matter how relative it is, that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? The Mona Lisa is the Mona Lisa, right? Regardless of how you feel about it, whether you're looking at it like, oh, she was smiling, or she was smirking, or she was this like this, or nah, she had a straight face. The bitch looked on it like whatever. It's the Mona Lisa. And it carries the same magnitude the same value no matter what magnitude it is, right? Makes it absolute. So when we look at the law of polarity from a self-development perspective and a development, perspective of self, we're looking at, we have to get to a point of our absolute self. That's the goal of all of this shit. You come down in the separation to get to your absolute self, to your divine self. All of these things are used the same way, right? Despite the fact that they're different terms and different terminologies and shit. But if we're going to look at the law and know that the law is something that is irrefutable, that is unchangeable, that is going to happen every time, that means that everything has an absoluteness to it, you know? And when you're able to see the absoluteness in the thing, you're able to observe the law. And when you're able to observe the law, you're able to maneuver in life and identify more often when the law is at play. You feel what I'm saying? And if you're not able to identify when the law is at play, you're going to be stuck, looking at the previous laws, looking at the other laws that are kind of irrelevant. You're going to look at the laws as irrelevant. But when you learn how to incorporate all of the laws into the law of absoluteness, or the law of polarity, to bring absoluteness, you get a better understanding of you. You get a better understanding of the world. You get a better understanding of life. And you also see how they're playing the game against you with absolutes. So this is why, from the law of relativity, when I was discussing how, it is what it is, this is what I mean. It is what it is. And now, if the law of relativity talks about it is what it is, then the law of polarity pretty much says what it is. You feel what I'm saying? It is what it is, but now what is it? It's so easy to say, from a cliche perspective, yeah, it is what it is, man. I ain't even tripping. It is what it is, this, that, and third. But it's like, what is it? A lot of people stop at the what is, at the part of what is it? Because that comes into the law of polarity, that comes into the equal and opposite and how you see it. Because now when people are arguing, going back and forth, it's like, I didn't mean for it to go that way, or I didn't do it this way. And it's like, but this is what it is. And now how I respond to it is relative to you. That's why these two laws are not necessarily, this is not why they're back to back, but this is why these two laws, the law of relativity and the law of polarity, kind of go hand in hand with each other. All of the laws go together, as I always say. It's like the Wu-Tang Clan. It ain't nothing to fuck with. I ain't said that shit in a long time. But the law of relativity and the law of polarity are very close together. And of course, we're going to dive heavy into those, and we're going to build on that and continue on with this 12 laws of the universe. But before we dive heavy into that, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Seen It All. Be sure to check out my website at IamJustSeen.com to get all things that are just seen. To all those who tip, donate, and sponsor to the podcast, you can do, you are greatly appreciated. To all those who would like to tip, donate, and sponsor to the podcast, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the podcast. Not the episode, but the podcast itself. And as always, Cash App and PayPal are just fine. And you know the vibes. That's that for this, and that's this for that. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into polarity. How do I want to subtitle this shit? All right, I'll keep it simple. We're going to dive into polarity, equals and opposites. No, we're going to dive into polarity, equally opposite. And don't forget to visit IamJustSeen.com. There, you can get all things Just Seen. You want to add the So For Real series to your library? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You want to learn how to master the markets for serious trading and investing? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You want to get your hands on some exclusive merch like tees, hoodies, coffee mugs, hats, bags? Visit IamJustSeen.com. Are you thinking about transitioning into the plant-based lifestyle? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You ever want to just chat with Seen about anything from simple advice to mentorship? Visit IamJustSeen.com. Anything and everything that is me, you can find at IamJustSeen.com. So take a quick peek into my world to see why being just seen is nothing less but always more. Because you never really know what you need until you see it, and you will never see it unless you visit IamJustSeen.com. All right. Welcome back. Ow. And without further ado, we're just going to dive heavy into this motherfucker. So, the law of polarity. You have the equals and you have the opposites, right? Equally opposite. This is where you get into, although looking at the world from seeing that it is what it is, you're learning from the development of it is what it is. Now you move into absolute values, right? You move into the my bad. Let me turn my phone off because I'm being distracted. But you move into the absolute value of things, right? The absolute value is the only value that matters, right? So as I was mentioning, when you're going into yourself, you have to look at the self from a perspective of I'm absolute, right? So many of us, we say I'm flawed, I'm imperfect, I'm perfect, I'm a god, I'm just a human, I'm just a man, I'm just a woman, I'm just a boy, I'm just a girl. Like, we're more than that. You know what I mean? Even to myself, the just seen ideation was, absoluteness, right? That's what I come from, that full completion of the self, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's the polarizing aspect. This is why subtitle of the episode of the podcast, profundity, right? I use that to set the tone for when you're truly in alignment with yourself, you're going to be absolute. But there's going to be there's going to be equal and opposite sides to you. So this is why I cuss so much. And it's not because I cuss a lot because I choose to cuss. It's just in my shit. But just as much profanity is in me, there's equally that much profundity in me. And I use that as the template to show how polarizing I am. You feel what I'm saying? But in showing how polarizing I am and showing how polarizing I'm supposed to be and I can be, I use that to truly set a tone of expressing this law of the universe, right? Being your absolute self is not difficult. It is not problematic. It is not hard. But the problem is we've been so wired to pick a side that this is where this law is manipulated. Going back to the law of relativity, where I was discussing, you get an ultimatum of certain things. Now we're at the point where we're saying why you have ultimatums. A lot of people in this world feel like they have choices, right? And I got choices, and this is why I get to all that matters in life are your decisions, because your decisions are predicated upon your absolute self. They're they are dependent upon both the opposite sides of you, the equal and opposite magnitudes of you. That's why at this level, when I talk about there's no good and evil, it's just benefit and detriment. All that relative shit about, this was a good experience, this was a bad experience, this, that. No, it's just, was it beneficial or detrimental? How many bad experiences that you had have turned into something beneficial? How many good experiences have you had to turn into something detrimental? Right? But even deeper than that, what decisions did you make that led to a beneficial outcome or a detrimental outcome? It is at this law where we start to become self-aware, but it is also at this law where they manipulate it so you don't become self-aware. You feel what I'm saying? Tying it back to the law of relativity episode and just in general, this is why people say you're born a sinner. If you're born, like when we look at the law of polarity, if you're born a sinner, you're equally born a saint. The extent to which you can sin is the extent to which you can be a saint. You feel me? The extent to which you can be bad is the exact extent to which you could be good. But why do they program you to be bad? Because it has chakra energy tied to it. Because it goes to your personal identity. Not only does it go to your personal identity, which is solar plexus chakra, it also governs how you connect to the world, whether you have attachments or not, which is crown chakra. The entire law of polarity is like a stair step. You feel me? It's like a stair step to your crown chakra. So relativity, we know when we discuss relativity, we spent most of the time focusing on the throat chakra and the brow chakra, or whatever the case may be. A lot of this one is going to be off the crown chakra because this is your Christ consciousness. When I say everybody, the Messiah is not the Messiah is not a nigga that has to come from the sky or somebody that has to come and save you. No, the Messiah is how you save yourself. Messiah energy is how you save yourself in this world. And how you save yourself according to your absolute nature. There's things that you were supposed to use to get out of certain situations that, because they don't align with what quote unquote is good, then you won't do them. Case in point, they say religion is put in place, for morality and shit. That's not what it is. Religion is put in place so poor people don't eat the rich. Rich people control, like the wealthy people, they control, like that's the duality. That's one of the dualities of like wealth and poverty. Wealth and poverty are equal opposites, equally opposite in magnitude to each other. A wealthy person, the wealth is equal in dynamic to poverty. I know a lot of people don't see that because it's relative. It's relative, but there's a duality in it in which you don't understand the divinity between the two. Because wealth is simply abundance and poverty is lack. That's it. And both of these things come from mentality and mindset. This is how they're so wired to the law of universe, which is the law of polarity. When we look at these polarities of, how do people, why are, like they say, wealthy people are evil. Wealthy people aren't evil. Wealth isn't evil. However, evil people produce abundance. I'm not saying that evil people produce abundance. I'm saying that in this context of what we're talking about, when we look at wealthy people being evil, no, there's evil people who produce abundance. Equally. That's why they say good people are, impoverished because I'm going to get my reward and I'm going to get my blessing in heaven. And I'm like, nobody can validate that. But if I give you a religion, there's no way you're going to rebel against anything because I'm going to give you so many tenets and put so many things in place and make you feel like you start off at a deficit from me. I'm going to make you feel like, not even from me, I'm going to make you feel like you start off as in a deficit in humanity, not as a benefit. You feel me? So when you start off believing that you're already at a deficit and you need to be saved, there's no way you can save yourself. Because you yourself feel as if you can't do that. And I know, we'll see. What, like these laws are all about, like religion is the quintessential piece to make sure the laws of the universe stay in play. Your understanding of the religion is how that is manipulated. I'm going to give you the understanding I need you to have so that way I can control how you are maneuvering within the 12 laws of the universe that are always going to be at play. So when I tell you your absolute self, when I tell you that your absolute self isn't something that you're going to have in this lifetime, you'll never try to find it. You'll never try to explore it. You'll never accept it. Instead, you'll go on a journey where you're trying to erase the negative side of you. You feel what I'm saying? This is where we're going to get into light and dark and shit. Like I got a jam session where I say, I'm light and dark. I'll take the walk. I cake the walk. It's easy to me. Right. A lot of people say, I want to avoid the darkness by any means or whatever the case may be. In order to be as light as you think you want to be, you have to be as dark as you can be. I mentioned a lot where I say I'm a violent person. Right. I'm a very violent person. That is an absolute reality for me. That is not me picking the side of any negative connotations. No, I'm speaking on that from an absolute perspective. You feel what I'm saying? But this is why words and semantics come into certain things, because if I speak this language and I have control over you from this language, I can dictate how you're supposed to view your absolute nature. You dig what I'm saying? So when I say I'm violent, right, that's a negative connotation off rip. Violence is not good. Violence is not bad. However, when you have a definition and you understand that violence is how you respond to danger, danger is bad. If danger is bad and violence is the response to it, then what does that say? All violence is as a response to danger is how peace is maintained. Peace is the control of chaos. It's not the absence of it. It's the control of chaos. Chaos never stops. Even if we're looking at it from a perspective of, what is it? One of Newton's laws or whatever. Like, nigga, you ain't define no law, nigga. But one of Newton's laws is that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Chaotic energy is always around. Why is it no longer chaos in our lives when we suddenly get our shit? Because we control the chaos. That's it. How are we able to control the chaos? Because in order for us to bring peace, we have to be able to meet at the level of chaos. So when they tell you opposites attract, this ties into this as well. Opposites attract to neutralize each other. Opposites bring balance. You feel what I'm saying? Opposites bring balance. So when I'm in a space and I'm looking at this polarity of I'm in a chaotic state, but I don't do anything to stop the chaos. How do I not do anything to stop the chaos? Because I can't. Because I have to meet the chaos where it is. As cliche as it is, I got to match the energy. I don't get how on social media, I don't get how in life we always talk about, I'm matching energy, but we miss the point of what it is. You don't match energy, you neutralize energy. But in order to match energy, you have to be able to go to the capacity that that energy is and use its opposite in order to neutralize it. So back to the violence thing. It's the response to danger. I used to get bullied when I was a kid. In kindergarten, when I was 5. I stopped being a bully. I stopped getting bullied after that, but it wasn't the fact that what I projected made motherfuckers not fuck with me. I no longer gave a fuck if motherfuckers fucked with me because I knew how to control the chaos. Bullies don't stop. Like, you'll never not experience a bully in life. However, bullies will experience whether or not they can fuck with you. You feel me? And I'm using this as an example from the metaphor's perspective, but this is going to tie into so many other things in life because this ties to this law of the universe, the law of polarity. Bullies never stop being bullies. Like, chaos never stops being chaos. You know what I'm saying? It's just when we finally meet, usually I could take it there. And not only can I take it there, sometimes I could take it further. Because I told you not to fuck with me. Because sometimes you have to take it further in order to neutralize the other side. So if chaos is all around you, you're right, you have to be able to get chaotic beyond the chaos. You have to get more chaotic than the chaos that's around you in order to bring peace. I'm saying that because when you have been wired to believe that you're not in authority to do that, that something else has to intercede on your behalf, it will never stop for you. Respectfully, and however you're going to take this, whether you believe in God, Allah, Jehovah, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Yeshua, it don't matter to me. But however you choose to believe in these things, in order for them to intercede on your behalf, what they have to meet that energy that is fucking with you the way that it is, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. But you don't, because you don't want to. There's buffers in place that make you feel guilty for even considering going beyond the problem. And I use chaos. I use all of these different things to show how grandiose it can be, but sometimes how simple it can be. When you have problems in your life, your solutions have to be greater than the problems. But you have to be able to be just as problematic to your problems in order to make a solution. Now, because of the law of relativity at play, we pick a side. Problems are bad. Solutions are good. That's not the case. Sometimes the solution that you have is not good enough for this problem. If we look at domestic violence, you feel me? I seen, what is the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez? She was beat. I ain't even gonna use Jennifer Lopez because y'all know how we rock. This our shit. You feel me? Tina Turner. You feel me? When she met Ike's energy, Ike stopped beating her. Now, everybody they teach you, be the bigger person, turn the cheek. Like, look at all of the shit that they teach you. Be the bigger person, turn the cheek. That's why you always hear me say, and you'll see me post it from time to time. When they go low, kick them in the fucking mouth. Get your ass up off the ground. Don't go low. Because I'll go lower. I'm going to show you that I have the capacity to go lower, but I'm high because I don't want to go low. But I have equal opposite capacity. The morality that I have is equal to the immorality that I have. You feel me? I tell people all the time, I live how I want, not how I should. Just be glad that how I want to just happens to be how I should. Don't play, because I'm moving in accordance with the law of the universe. I'm not moving to how you want me to behave. I don't give a fuck about shit like that. I don't give a fuck about behavior. I give a fuck about being. And I know that when things are flowing in energy, in order for shit to stop, it has to be matched. Like, the shit really got to motherfucking be matched. So they'll teach you, just ignore somebody. You can't ignore somebody who's not ignoring you. You know what I'm saying? This is where passive aggression and all that shit. No, I get active. If you're actively aggressive with me, I got to be actively aggressive with you. And I have to show you that my active aggression is a little bit more than your active aggression to make you passive aggressive. I have to make you stop. In Batman, I want to say it was The Dark Knight. It's definitely The Dark Knight because Joker said it. He said, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? It's a paradox because when you see it, depending on which side you're seeing, you're like, well, I feel like the immovable object will eventually move if the unstoppable force keeps going. But depending on how you're looking at it, that immovable object ain't going nowhere because it's immovable. So what's going to happen to the unstoppable force? That is a quandary that you can never quantify. That is something you can never calculate and actually have a definitive answer for because it can always go back and forth. But net neutrality will be met. An unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. These two things are equal and opposite in magnitude. And they bring oneness. This is absolute. Because once absolution or absolutivity kicks in, there's net zero. It's neutrality. But because there's net zero does not mean that there's not magnitude. $1 million in equity paired with $1 million in debt is still zero. But $1 million is still a lot. $1 million is still a lot. You feel me? But it's still zero when you actually break it down. That's what oneness is about. So now, when you start off the laws and you have divine oneness, this is the infantile stage of it. This is another like absoluteness is another verification of the oneness. But now it comes from the oneness of actually understanding what makes it one. When we understand ancestral, heritage and the lineage and shit, like when we used to count, like the matrix. I'm using this because these go hand in hand. The matrix, it breaks down to ones and zeros. Do you know why? All of the other numbers that we think we have aren't really numbers. They're variations of ones and zeros. There's some kind of derivative of how ones and zeros are supposed to be understood. Mathematics has an esoteric understanding as well. The reason why is because when you have zeros and ones, they are symbols, numerals, so to speak. Number and numeral is two different things. And numerals are the energies. I have an episode on numerology, but numerals are the energy tied to that numeric symbol. So the number 1 represents everything. No. Let me slow it down because it has layers to it. 0 represents nothingness. 1 represents everything. So 0 is nothing, 1 is everything. But now we can layer that another way because in addition to nothingness, 0 also represents infinity. 1 also represents the finite. 0 represents femininity. 1 represents masculinity, right? When you get to these things of chaos and peace and all of these opposites, everything has an equal and opposite and it's defined by binary code. And I'm glad I said binary code because now you can start to understand why they say, oh, non-binary. When you identify yourself as non-binary, and if that's what you do, that's what bags your groceries, by all means, my nigga, paper and plastic. Don't make me no never mind. But when you start to identify as non-binary, you separate from the universe because the universe is binary. Especially when you understand the law of polarity. The universe is binary. If you yourself, a binary being, are identifying as not binary, you are no longer putting yourself in the realm that the universe put you in, which makes it harder for you to understand who you are. This is why motherfuckers is talking about we got 30-something genders. What? Okay, nigga, we'll discuss that more when we get to the law of gender, but the law of gender. But when we're looking at it from this perspective, if you are in a position to where you can't see the binary reality of life, you'll never get to the absolute value of life. You feel what I'm saying? So that law is being put at play because it's a real reality. But now I'm going to force you to either pick one of these sides. Like they'll tell you nobody's perfect while telling you you're created in the image and likeness of a perfect being. And you believe it. So when you take on what's not perfect, it's an episode this season where I talk about imagery and images in the mind. Like the mind doesn't see it doesn't see that it can't do anything. It sees absolute value. It sees absolute value. So when you think that when you tell yourself I can't, right? What your mind sees as the absolute value, the polarity of what it would be if you didn't, or if you couldn't, or if you don't. And you'll exhibit all of those behaviors. Now, anybody who says, I can, they're going to be placed on the other side of the spectrum, opposite sides of the same coin, but it's about that specific ability. You feel what I'm saying? That's how the mind works. So now I'm going to program you according to knowing that this absoluteness does play out at all times, but then also knowing the relativity. I'm going to make you feel a certain relativity, but I'm always going to make your relativity be negative. So your personal identity is always going to be built on you being ashamed of yourself. And by being ashamed of yourself, this is where you can get overachievers. And like I said, they use these laws all day long. So when we look at the education system, what is the goal? What is the goal? To be successful, right? And not be a failure. Not realizing that success and failures are one and the same. Opposite sides of the same motherfucking coin. But if I start you off as a failure, if I start you off with the perception of the failure, what's going to happen is you're going to do everything I need you to do to prove that you're not. I can benefit off of you from that. Because every year I'm going to give you a test. I'm going to give you standardized tests. I'm going to give you material and everything like that. Then I'm going to grade you according to how willing you are to absolve the failure, to make it not be a failure. Not realizing that failures are how I learn. Successes are supposed to be how I learn too. Most people who succeed don't learn. Why? Because most people who fail don't learn. Most people who, when you fail, you're supposed to learn. Therefore, when you succeed, you're supposed to learn as well. But because of the way they structure the system, when you do succeed, you don't learn. You become educated. If you really learn, there will be no reason to be able to conceptualize, are you smarter than a fifth grader? I'm doing a dramatic pause for that. Because we're going to gauge the barometer every now and again. Now, mind you, the average adult doesn't read beyond a sixth grade level. I'm about to put this shit in the absolute context for this law of polarity and shit and keep going. But the average adult in America right now doesn't read beyond the level of a sixth grader. There's a game show that says, are you smarter than a fifth grader? The average adult doesn't read beyond the level of a sixth grader. And there's a television show that says, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Sixth graders are between 11 and 12. Fifth graders are between 10 and 11. We're gauging to see if mentally you're beyond that of a 10 to 12-year-old. That's crazy when you really think about it. Media, as somebody who has developed marketing and different things like that, I understand when you write as a marketer, you write for a sixth grader. You write for somebody that's in middle school. You don't even go beyond eighth grade. How do you do that if you're not on that level, but if you're beyond that? Like, I struggle. I have difficulty sometimes doing that because I don't understand life from the level of a sixth grader. My reading comprehension is far beyond that. It's not a horn tooter, not a reason to brag or no shit like that, but it's just the reality of what it is. So it's hard for me to write. I don't talk to sixth graders. I don't communicate with 12-year-olds. I just don't. I have nothing in common with a 12-year-old. I have a far greater understanding than a 12-year-old. But the system is already designed according to the laws of the universe to make you stay a 12-year-old. That's where your absoluteness is going to remain. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's real. And it's real to the context that because now when I start you off in this education system, I'm going to give you grades. I'm going to give you all of these different things to see how you can get it right in the first time, but how well you can be educated and trained. Did you know graduation, and I could be reaching, the word graduation is it's a play on words. It is a compound word created from gradual indoctrination, which is a mind fuck. Because now when we look into the law of polarity, we look at graduation often as a good thing, and we don't see how graduation can be a bad thing. My sisters, y'all know y'all about to get this smoke in a second. Fuck with me though. But when we look at graduation, it is a compound word fused together from gradual indoctrination. So when you graduate from the 5th grade or 6th grade, depending on how the middle school is, you graduate from the 8th grade, you graduate from high school, graduate from college, graduate from a master's, graduate from a doctor's, graduate from med school, graduate from law school, graduate from dental school. Every time you graduate, you are gradually indoctrinated into something. What are you being indoctrinated into? because of the media, because of not the media, because of the programming, we only see the polarity of graduation being good. We don't even fathom or contemplate the relativity of the other side of graduation, because we don't realize that graduation is gradual indoctrination. So much so that when somebody goes to prison, what will we call them? Institutionalized. And we don't think that graduating from an educational institution is institutionalization. I don't know if y'all seen it a couple years ago, where the inmates, the black inmates, they killed the Harvard students in a debate. And motherfuckers, this right here is a perfect example of the law of polarity. You feel what I'm saying? Because motherfuckers thought because these motherfuckers was inmates that they could not possibly be smarter than Harvard students. Even so, they thought that because these were Harvard students that they could not lose a debate to inmates. When I say, motherfuckers, if you don't graduate and become a white supremacist or a narcissist in some way, shape, or form, you have to have a level of narcissism to believe that you're a white supremacist. Like, the word supreme in that shit doesn't even make sense, because genetically they have recessive genetics. I've gotten to it on social media with motherfuckers who say that's because the genetics are rare. Rarities aren't good. They made them good. In nature, any rarity is not a good thing. Nature doesn't favor rarities. It doesn't. It favors commonality. Not in the commonality in the sense that things are the same, because there's still individual differentiations. But I mean, as far as commonality, in the sense that whatever is the most natural. I'm going to say that it doesn't favor rarity. It favors the most natural, which is dominant. So when you look at recessive genetics, I ask people, this is the law of the universe being manipulated right fucking now. When people say that Europeans are the standard of beauty, how? How can recessive genetics really be the standard of beauty? I'm going to make it the standard of beauty. The fuck? I'm going to give you the choice to see that this is the standard of beauty. So I have to put so many systems in place just for you to make this beautiful. Going in to what I was talking about with the equal and opposites, you have to meet the opposite to its exact magnitude in order to neutralize it. You have to go beyond its magnitude in order to change it. So when we look at the Caucasian supremacy and other shit like that, we have to realize that this is using a law of the universe, which is the law of polarity, but going beyond it to actually change the perception of what the polarity is. You feel me? Like when I was talking about chaos, in order for chaos to stop, you have to go beyond the chaos. So in order for the standard of nature to change, like we look at white people and we feel like, you know, from the collective, the racism and all of the shit, we're looking at racism as the perspective of, you know, they hate black people. No, they hate nature. They hate nature. And when we understand that, you have to realize that if you hate nature, you hate what's most natural. Because now when we understand genetics, like there's a whole system that they've been studying here in America called eugenics. And it's not just here in America, it's all over. They're trying to survive. Eugenics is a thing. Now, here's why it's important. Because when we look at eugenics, we think they're studying genetics. No, they're studying black people's genetics. They're studying the genetics of eumelanin. Eugenics. Eu means true. They're not studying pheogenetics. They're not studying pheomelanin. They're studying melanin. They're studying eumelanin specifically. It has to be in the law of the universe. So now when I know that I can't, like, wow, melanin, eumelanin is so powerful that racism had to be developed in order to neutralize it. I'm doing a dramatic pause with that. This is not a horn tooter. This is not, you know, just because I do. I come from the eumelanated stock. You feel me? It is what it is. But this is where so many different dynamics have to now come into position, because you have racism. Racism isn't just hating people. It's hating nature. It's going against nature and going against what's natural. Why do you think so much shit is artificial now? I'm doing a dramatic pause because I need y'all to understand that the laws of the universe are always at play. And when you know the law, you have to respect the law. So when I look at nature, I have to become unnatural to the capacity that nature is natural in order to destroy nature. Racism is that. Racism is that. That is a law that is at play. But racism is honoring the law of polarity. When I hear black people say, why do, they hate us so much? Why is this, that, and the third? You would hate you too if left to nature, you wouldn't exist. I'd hate you too. I don't get mad at it. I don't get mad at racism. Yes, the effects and everything like that I have problems with that. But I understand racism first from an absolute perspective, because now I'm able to see y'all niggas need to survive. They literally have 75 years left on this earth. I'm not bullshitting when I say it. And they're trying to destroy us. They're fucking themselves up because you cannot beat nature. You cannot beat nature. Nature adjusts to what's unnatural. Even if what's unnatural can meet nature at that level, nature is going to win because of this very law. But now you see the depths that they have to go just to neutralize nature. They poison the water, pollute the air, deforestation, they cut the trees, everything like that. The only thing that they respect is fire. That's the only thing that they respect is fire. Because fire is one of the only things in nature that doesn't move abundantly. Think about it. If you look at just the elements of nature, fire is the only element that doesn't move abundantly. But everything that they tie to is fire. Not just from the religious perspective of the fear of hell. Like, you know what I'm saying? They use everything that is going to that is unnaturally going to pair with nature and go against nature. Because it's absolute. What are the weapons called? Firepower. They create bombs. Everything that they do is based off of fire as an energy, as an element. And they poison everything else. They poison the earth. They poison the water. They poison the earth. I mean, they poison the air. They poison the water. They poison the air, the water, and the earth. But they use fire as poison. They are poisonous with fire. It's not an accident. That's not an accident. It's racism. Racism is just a term that is tied to the people that are affecting what's most natural from a human perspective. We look at race as, it's a social construct. It's not. It is a definitive explanation of the competition between genetics. Like race, if you etymologically look at the word race, it began as competition. You feel me? It became as genetics when it's like survival of the fittest. So this is a race. There's only 3 races of people: the Africoid, the Caucasoid, and the Mongoloid. Who teams up against black people? The Mongoloid and the Caucasoid. Because melanated people, the Africoid is so natural and abundant that the Mongoloid and the Caucasoid are unnatural. And they will not stand when everything takes place. Now look at who, quote unquote, runs the world. The Mongoloids are Asians, Caucasians are Europeans, and all of them. Look who's running the world. But look who has to sit at the bottom of the world in order for this to be balanced in their favor. Because this law has to be honored. There has to be an equal and opposite at all times to maintain equilibrium. As unnatural as we are, we're going to go against nature. Who's the only ones who can protect nature? Eumelanated people. Because we are what's natural in every facet. So this is why when you get to why are black people called black, even black people say shit like, don't call me black because of, Black Laws Dictionary is this, that, and the third. Do you see all that they have to put in place to nullify your own existence, to make you feel nullified about your existence? I don't mind being called black because, again, when you go into words and you go into wordplay and you go into real etymology and real metaphysical expressions of shit, you realize that we're going to go back to absolute now. Check this out and watch how I spin it back and go back to the binary code and everything. Black is the encompassing of all. From a physics perspective, when you study the colors, black is the darkest color because it absorbs all forms of light. Black is the encompassing of all. When something is white, light, it repels everything. That means it does not encompass anything. So a lot of the semantics, a lot of the words in which we hear are completely opposite to what we're supposed to be understanding them as. So when white people say they're the pure race, they are. I don't get mad at them anymore. Like, they're not pure. They use the semantics to create the synonyms and create the propaganda that pure is good. If you've actually studied science, a pure mixture, pure chemical is something that has nothing in it. Nothing in it. But when I can control the relativity of how you perceive this thing, now I can go into making sure that although I'm telling the truth, I'm lying at the same time. Because when I get to the absolute side of it all, you're not looking at it from the absolute side. You're looking at it from the relativity side. Because I've controlled your emotional output on how you're supposed to respond to this. So when we look at the polarity of humans, you have white people, you have black people, and then everybody else is a landmass or ethnicity in between. People be like, why are we called black? We're not a color. We're brown people. Ask yourself that question. If we are in fact brown and we're just shades of the darkest brown, how did we get the name black? And if they are white and they're not really white, they're just shades of beige and pale and shit like that. Like, how did they get white? Because it's not about the skin color, bro. It is about the genetics. So now when we look at genetics, phenotypes and genotypes, now when we look at genetics and we look at embryology at the same time, genotypes and phenotypes, the phenotype is the physical representation of your genetics, right? The genotype is the I would say invisible expression of your genetics, the shit that's internal. You feel me? Your diseases, your mental, all of these different things. That's your genotype. But the genotype and phenotype still have to be tied to one and the same. How? Because when you look at embryology, you have 3 germ layers that the body has to differentiate into. You have the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. Derm means skin. Derm means skin, my nigga. Inner skin, outer skin, middle skin. Now, each of these different skin layers develop something different. This is why they tell you, but they don't tell you. You'll go to school, in the basic aspects, you'll hear skin is the largest organ you have. It's the only organ you have. When you understand germ layers. Because if skin does mean derm, well, derm does mean skin, and skin is the largest organ you have, the endoderm, ectoderm, and mesoderm, your entire being is skin. Your teeth, skin. Your eyes, skin. Your hair, skin. All of these different things are skin. Because they all come from a derm layer, a skin layer, inner skin, outer skin, middle skin. So now when you say, why do you have black people? Why do you have white people? But everybody else is not a color. Everybody else is an ethnicity or a culture. Everybody else is the landmass they come from. So you will not understand the truth and the absolute reality of what's going on. So when we're called black, it is not because of our skin being brown and darkest of brown. It's mainly because of our hair. Just like them being called white. It's not really because they're white. It's because the hair is blonde. Now you have to go through different languages. This is why I want to say in Spanish, even Spanish and French, both. Well, English too. That's where the word blonde comes from. Blonde, blanc in French, and blanco in Spanish all mean what? White. It was never about your skin. It was about your hair. This is why it's so pressed to have blonde hairs and blue eyes. That is the absolute level of recessive. But then you have black hair and brown eyes. You feel me? Now you're the dominant genetics. Study Mendelian genetics. It's right there. All of that shit is put right there. But now these are the absolutes. Because it was always about hair. So now, when we get to what a Negro really is, what does a Negro mean? What does Negro mean from Spanish? It means black. What was black about us? Our hair. Now when you understand the polarities of hair, Just look at a hair. You have two types of hair. You have hair and you have fur. Natural hair grows up towards the sun. Fur grows away from it. So when we talk about wanting straight hair and different things of that nature, no, you got to understand why you want that shit. But this law is at play. That's why I tell people the God of your enemy is your devil. The God of your enemy is your devil. And even if you align with your enemy's God, you're aligning with your own devil. So what do you have to do? You have to create a reality in which your enemy is not your enemy anymore, to make sure that your God is not your devil, or your devil is not your God. But this is the law of polarity. And it's piggybacking off of relativity. So I'm going to give you all of the relative shit so I can make sure that the polarity works in my favor. I can't stop it. I can't stop the polarity. I can't stop black people from being genetically dominant. I can't stop white people from being genetically recessive. I just can't. They've been trying. Trust me, they've been trying. But then they gave up and realized what it was. So they used black people to maintain their genetics. But it's all polarity. It's all polarity. It's why there's only one race of people. It's the human race. You're right. It is only one race of people. There's only one it's semantics, but they tell you the shit. I love how they use this language, and I love how they use language as a whole, because they always layer shit as an entendre. And depending on your comprehension level is determining on whether or not you can catch the entendre or not. There is only one race of people. There's only one competition of people on this earth. There's only one race of people, the human race. Why do you think they took the E out of human? Because it would shed light to who has hue and who doesn't. Now you go to the darker hues versus the lighter hues. So now when people say, why do they hate black people in every culture? You'd hate the dominant genetics too when it goes with nature, and your system is designed to go against nature, bro. Artificial intelligence, transformers and shit, like all of that shit is tied to artificial shit. And every year they teach you more and more that we're artificial, we're not real. And it's not that they're not real when they use artificial, it's that we're not natural. We're mutations. We're the genetic deficit, not y'all. Everything that we are is recessive genetics. But there was a lot that had to be done in order to convince the world that recessive genetics is the standard. If recessive genetics becomes the standard, what has humanity fallen to? But it's the law of compensation. I mean, not the law of compensation. It's the law of absoluteness, law of polarity. You have to have the absolute value in order to maintain a polarity in the first place and make it neutral. So when we're looking at, wow, they've been doing all of this shit if you don't see if you don't see how powerful you are by how powerless they are based off how powerful they need to be, you'll miss the whole point. I'm going to say that again because I like the way that flowed. If you don't realize how powerful you are and how powerless they are by how powerful they need to be to make you powerless, you're missing the whole point. They have to make you powerless to feel powerful, to be powerful. Your power is enough on its own to make them powerless. Because now we can't control any other element of the earth except fire. Fire is their go-to. Because they can use fire to poison. You know why? Because fire is the element that isn't abundant in nature like that. Heat, yes, the heat energy, all of that shit, but fire itself, nature, like think about it. There's earth all around. You have trees, grass, all of this shit. Water, you have lakes, streams, ponds, rivers. Air is air, nigga. It's everywhere. Where does fire sit in abundance like these other three elements? It doesn't. It doesn't. Because fire is only necessary when it's time to destroy. All of the other elements are necessary when it's time to build. Who's the most destructive people on earth? It's their nature, bro. It's their nature. When we want to change some shit, the only way you're going to change something is when you can supersede the polarity that needs to change. By no means, please don't take this as a call to action to go to war. Y'all niggas are not ready for that. Y'all niggas are not built for that. Y'all niggas are not prepared for that. They made sure of that. Everything they do is to maintain their position in alignment with the law of the universe. And they still can't win. We don't die, we multiply. And they're about to go on the endangered species list because of everything that they tried to do. They were going to go away either way because they have recessive genetics. But they create their system to maintain the recessive genetics according to the law of the universe, the law of polarity. When something is polarizing, you got to understand it's not just simple as, it's emotionally charging. No, it's equal and opposite in magnitude. White people will always be polarizing to black people. Black people will always be polarizing to white people. And we can't and for some reason we don't get it. And because of the law of polarity being manipulated and not even being taught correctly, we don't realize that we're supposed to love everything they hate. We're trying to extend hands of love, and we don't realize that we have to love what they hate. Because that's the only way they're going to be neutralized. That's the only way we can neutralize the beef. We keep trying, but again, when you put a religious doctrine in place that tells you to turn the cheek to your enemy, when you put a religious doctrine in place that tells you that you can't kill, you can't do it, you can't defend yourself. If self-defense makes you cringe, you're a slave. But this is a polarity. This is a polarity until you understand how to make it an absolute reality. Everything that they hate about black people is everything that black people are supposed to love about themselves. They hate our nose. They hate our lips. They hate the way we walk. They hate our hair. They put laws in place to make sure we cannot be our true self. Do you know why? Because it goes with the law of polarity. The law of polarity is always going to be at play. And when it's at play, it's going to create a neutral environment. Now, a part of this neutrality is if you're recessive, you got to go. It's not, that's a law. That's a law. So separate but equal, colors only, whites only. We can't they've been calling themselves white. They gave us multiple names as far as being colored. They didn't call us black until recently. About the 70s, between the 70s and 80s when we actually started being black. There's people alive right now who have gone from Negro to African American to black to whatever. They're tired of changing names. Stop letting them change your name. You know why they change our names though? And we allow them to? It's because we're prisoners of war. All you keep hearing is get into the markets. But do you trade or do you invest? Should you do stocks, Forex, crypto, or NFTs? My personal answer is not a single one if you don't know how to read a chart. Without knowing how to read a chart, you end up giving all your money to those who do. Do you know what a candle is? Do you know the pocket of activity? Do you know the difference between market direction and market control? If you answer no at least once, you might want to learn how to read a chart first. Learning how to read a chart will let you know if you should trade or invest and if you should do stocks, Forex, crypto, and or NFTs. It will also let you know if this is even for you or not. So visit IamJustSeen.com to learn how to read charts with my Mastering the Market course, ebooks, and webinars today. The world is changing. The question is, will you adapt with it? We weren't slaves. That tells a different story when you feel like, oh, we enslaved black people. No. We went to war with black people for a long time. We weren't enslaved for no 400 years, my nigga. We was at war for 400 years. And the prisoners of war were enslaved. And that's who the history is being documented under. Nigga, you really think they just whooped our ass like that? No, it was a fight. It was a fight. And we didn't enslave them as we won. We made them retreat. And the battles that they won, they enslaved us. They enslaved us. They changed our names. They changed everything. Like the Indians and all of this shit. Like all of that shit was they told the history. Because they came with fire. They came with fire. They didn't just come with disease like they say. They didn't just like, it was fire. We still had the earth. We still had the air. We still had the water. And they knew that that's the only way that we could survive. What do they control now? What do they control now? What do they manipulate right now? Because they have to do that in order to maintain this law of polarity in their favor. But again, now it's like, well, see, if they doing most of this shit and like, how is it still balanced? The universe, it's not biased. It's not looking at us saying, y'all getting y'all ass whooped. I'm gonna help. I'm gonna intervene. Ignorance is not absence. The ignorance of the law is not absence of the law. You feel what I'm saying? They're doing what they need to do to make sure this is neutral. You feel what I'm saying? Tying it back to the expression and example of the $1 million, right? $1 million in equity, $1 million in debt. It's still net zero. I have to make sure that the playing field isn't equal in order to be equal. You feel what I'm saying? Steroids and PEDs, they were never a problem until black people started playing sports with white people. Because the degrees of separation were there. When we look at the Negro League, now because the mentality had already been so fucked up, we look at Jackie Robinson. He's the first colored to play with the major leagues, with the majors. And we were the quote unquote minor leagues. Our players were better. But we disbanded everything just to have one play. Tokenism. Now, keep this in mind. Tying this into balance. In order for these worlds to coexist, I'm just using the word of baseball. In order for the worlds to coexist and be equal, we can either have the major leagues and the minor leagues, in which y'all don't get any recognition, y'all don't get any good support or whatever the case may be, but it's balanced. But now you let that one in and you shut all of yours down, and now we keep all of ours and we create the major leagues, and now it's equal. They've been telling you all day long what it was. Like, we keep asking for equality and not seeing how we're equal. We ask for equality and we don't see how this equality is being made, because this equality is being made according to the law of the universe, not fairness, nigga. It's never been equal. We've never been equal, but they have to make it equal. So now, you guys want to be equal to us. We'll integrate. Let's integrate. But now you have to give up your businesses. You have to give up your land. You have to give up your resources. And then we'll be equal. You're going to rent from us. You're going to give us your money back. Like, you're not going to have any levels of ownership. We're going to be the ones to protect you. We're going to we're going to have our police systems. We're going to have all. Now you're equal. And the black people are still saying we're fighting for equality. You're not. The equality is there. You're just not seeing what it means to be equal, because you're not looking at it from the law of the universe. You're looking at it from a law of relativity. You're looking at it not even from a law. You're looking at it from a level of morality. This is not good or evil. It's benefit and detriment. The universe is balanced even when shit is imbalanced. That's what this law of polarity is about. The universe will always remain in balance, even if motherfuckers is oblivious to the balance. This imbalance that we have is balanced. This is why I tell y'all, anything in America that has system behind it is designed to work for a reason, and it's designed to make sure white people stay alive. We don't want you having sex with our women. We don't want you doing any of this shit. Like, you can't do any of that. You can't because you erase us. You erase us. So we're going to respect the law of the universe, and we're just going to manipulate it. We're going to make things equal. Excuse me. We're going to create ideations like wealth. So to create wealth, we have to make poverty. Somebody has to be impoverished. Somebody has to be impoverished. In order for somebody to be wealthy, somebody has to be impoverished. You ever wondered why when people say, you know, I'm black too, I grew up black, I grew up around black people, how is your explanation of your connection to blackness always related to poverty? I grew up poor too. Nigga, what? That's your reality? That's your reality? Anytime I hear somebody say, well, like, you know, black people shouldn't be able to do this, like, because I grew up poor too. Oh, so you think blackness is poor? Why? Because you now have associated blackness to poverty. And in associating blackness to poverty, what do you associate whiteness to? Wealth. Do you see the law at play right now? When black people are intelligent, we say we're acting white. When white people act ignorant, we say they acting like niggas. Like, you feel what I'm saying? This law is at play. This is the law of polarity. Equal and opposite in magnitude every time. But now when you put wealth in the mix and you take melanin out of it, when you take natural genetics out of it and you put money into the place, you put status instead of essence. You swap status for essence. Universe says, hey, this is what you go by. It is what it is, bro. But this is why you can't play this game that way. Because you don't know how to play the game. Systems, the healthcare system, like what the judicial system is to black men is what the healthcare system is to black women. That's not an accident, my nigga. We don't see that shit. What the judicial system is to black men is what the healthcare system is to black women. You don't believe me? How did you get the whole OBGYN shit? Where did that start? How did you start with the tools? How did you get all of the systems of who did they develop those tools on? Black women. When I tell y'all we're prisoners of war, I'm not bullshitting. The war never stopped. The war never stopped. The war never stopped. We're just at the phase where the war is now in warfare. Warfare doesn't need the guns. It doesn't need the firepower. It doesn't need the actual domination anymore. We're at warfare, my nigga. The quote unquote enslavement that they keep talking about, we were enslaved for 400 years and all that shit. No, that was it. Those camps, like that was they captured prisoners of war. This is why the West Coast is what it is. The West, Oklahoma, different thing. Like people be looking at like, it's not funny, but people be looking at like Tulsa, Oklahomas and the Black Wall Streets and the even if you look at the name of California, it's named after a queen, a black queen. It's named after a black queen, my nigga. But why do those people on the West Coast move different from the people on the East Coast? Why do the people on the West Coast, even in the middle of it, like, where did they get their wealth from? How did they get like, those are the people. Now we got to look at it from the war's perspective. Some of us didn't lose. Some of us sent them back retreating. Some of us sent them back retreating. Some of us sent them the fuck back retreating. And you know what those people who sent them back retreating became? Cowboys. Cowboys and Indians. They made it seem like the Cowboys and the Indians were beefing with each other. No, Cowboys and Indians were one and the same. Cowboys, quote unquote, would have been the niggas that said, you know what, fuck these arrowheads and these arrows. This shit ain't working. Let's go get some of their guns. Let's start moving how they move. Because they came with what? Fire. They came with fire. We didn't need fire because we used the earth. We didn't need fire because we used water. Now, when I say we didn't need fire, yeah, we still cooked and we still put fire down. But look in comparison to the abundance of the elements that we used. We didn't pollute the air. We didn't do deforestation. Like we did it from like when we burnt some shit down through indigenous practices. It wasn't frequent. Fire wasn't used as much as earth was used. Fire wasn't used as much as water was used. Fire wasn't used as much as air was used. Because fire is how they make everything equal. Now it's even more equal because now I have to educate you the way I need you to be educated. And even that still doesn't even compare. Like when you look at Vivian Thomas, the guy who's responsible for open heart surgery, how did he do it? Oh, well, he wasn't formally educated. He wasn't stupid though. He wasn't stupid. But now I'm gonna I'm gonna be able to gauge your intelligence and tell people how intelligent you are. I'm proof of that. I outthink most degree-ridden motherfuckers. Like, and it's not on no arrogant type shit. It's just because of what I am. My genetics are dominant. It's never been fair. I knew it's never been fair. Y'all know it's never been fair. It has never been fair. But why do we have to work twice as hard to get half as much and we're 4 times as good? Because a system is in play to make y'all equal. Shit ain't the same, bro. But it's a law of the universe at play. And it's a mean law too. It's the law of polarity. The whole law of polarity is why this is the way it is. But when you tell about this is why the religion has to be what it is, because so much of the shit that will free your mind, you're going to call demonic. But when the God of your enemy is your devil, what is really demonic? The very shit that would be demonic to you is angelic. Now, this is not to say just immediately go practice the shit, because if you're still practicing it from the perspective of the person who gave it to you from a demonic perspective, guess what you're going to look at it as? Demonic. Your mind is that powerful when it doesn't know, oh, this is good or bad, this is high or low. It's going to say, I'm going to create according to this polarity. You feel me? I just recently I had a conversation with somebody and they said, I don't worship dead people. And I was like, ain't you a Christian though? Yep, proud of it. Don't you believe in Jesus? Don't you worship Jesus? Ain't Jesus dead? So you don't worship, because the conversation was about their ancestors. You know what I'm saying? And do you pay homage to it? No, I don't worship dead people. So everything you were supposed to do for your ancestors, you do for Jesus. But Jesus ain't dead. He rose again. Really, nigga? You really? Okay. I'm not knocking it because I get it. I get it because I understand it because I've been in that situation. Well, why do you have to understand it like that? How can you worship the dead that they want you to worship, but you can't worship your bloodline? And it ain't even about worship. It's about paying reverence and homage and shit. Wow. Jesus is dead, my nigga. Well, no, he ain't dead. He came out of the tomb. He died in 3 days. He rose later. Then where did he go? He went so he's alive in heaven? He's the only living being in heaven? Where everybody else is dead? So if that is the case, then you can't honestly say that dead people are in heaven. When people transition and they die, they're not in heaven anymore. Y'all pick and choose when y'all want to be with the dead and when y'all don't. The fuck? If you don't want to have reverence for the dead, why do you want to go to heaven? It ain't nothing but dead niggas up there. Ain't that kind of contradictory? I know when I die, I'm going to go to heaven and I'm going to be in a better place and I'm going to see this person. I'm going to see this dead person again. What? Do you hear yourself? No, they don't hear themselves. They don't. Because a part of the polarity that is at play is for them not to understand what they're seeing. For them to not be able to know what they're talking about. There's so many layers to this shit. Racism is not just hating black people from their skin. No, it's using the law of the universe to make sure that recessive genetics does not disappear. Because nature will see to it that it happens that way. Nature will see to it that happens that way. If you breed, you'll be bred out. If you don't, you go extinct. You're not supposed to be here. It's just the way it is, nigga. You're not supposed to be here. You feel me? But this is why they put so many stigmas, so many buffers in place, so you don't even see that this is the law that is being put in motion. This is why I tell you, this is why I'm so big on study the antithesis of a thing, because then you need to see what the absolute value is. You think your value is the only value, and that's what makes you evil with the shit. That's why I'm always wondering, like, when religious people say they got into spirituality and all they saw was demons and darkness, nigga, that's all you see now. You just don't admit it. Why is that all you only see now? Because that's all you're wired to see. Most motherfuckers don't believe in God. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in Allah. They don't believe in Muhammad. They don't even love these motherfuckers. They just don't want to go to hell. The fear for hell is more than their love for them. And they say that their fear for hell is out of their love for them, those things. No. All you're going to see is hell if that's what you fear. Sounds good. Sounds good to say, I want to live a righteous life. I want to behave this and the third. What is righteous? What is righteousness? If righteousness cannot go with the law of the universe, of polarity, you can't be righteous if you have to pick a side. You think righteous is morally good? No. Even in the Bible, they would tell you, like, nigga, angels came down and sacked cities, bro. When are you going to sack your cities? That's not my ministry. That's not what I'm supposed to do. That shit created cowardice in you. Now, when we look at it from this perspective, I like how I just segued into that and used cowardice. But now going back to the absolute, look at the delineation between black people and white people. Sticking into the racism, sticking it to the law of the universe, tying into how they built this system according to that. A lot of white people, successful ones, they're narcissists. They're narcissists. But a lot of black people that are equal and opposite in capacity to that are cowards. I'm not shitting on my people and trying to undermine them, call them bitches or no shit like that. They're cowards. Now, the people that are equal and opposite and choosing to move from the perspective of I'm going to be just as high as they are, now you're arrogant. You're supposed to be a coward, nigga. Not. You ain't supposed to have this confidence. You're arrogant now. You're the narcissist now. I'm not. I'm just not a coward. I'm not the coward this system wants us to be. But now I have to be now because of that, I'm everything that is now against me. See how it works? See how it works? Because the polarities have to play themselves out, but it has to play itself out in such a way that what you love yourself for, what I hate you for, is what you have to hate you for too. Nah, in order for me, it's easy to neutralize the shit. All you got to do is love it. We don't love it. We lust it the same way they do. Because with love comes correction. And then when you understand this law of the universe, especially when it comes to the binary side of things, when you understand this law of the universe for real, and you actually move according to the law, what do you see? What do you see? You see that whatever they love, you're supposed to hate. Whatever they hate, you're supposed to love. That's why you can't trust those people who say that they love you when they're aligned with the system that hates you. There are no allies in this shit. There are no allies in this shit. The moment y'all realize there are no allies because of the system and the law of polarity being at play, you'll get that the relativity is being manipulated to actually infiltrate and continue to destroy you. You keep inviting niggas to the cookout and they're poisoning us every time you invite them. This goes into, I want to say in the law of relativity when I was talking about, Republicans and Democrats. Republicans and Democrats. Niggas be thinking, if you're not Republican and you go into Democrat, you want to think about the polarity of the system. They need people to keep black people cowards. They need people to keep black people afraid. Now, when you look at the system of racism at play, that is a polarity. Democrats and Republicans both govern how that system plays out. Democrats are covert. Republicans are overt, but it's still racism. Matter of fact, I said it this exact same way in that episode. You're worried about what's covert or overt, the lesser of two evils, missing that it's the evil. What's evil to you is not evil to your enemy, my nigga. But you have to use your enemy's evils. You have to use the lesser of the two evils that your enemy gave you and said, this is what you're going to do. Because now you have to look at my enemy's keeping a polarity for some reason.
Because we prisoners of war, my nigga. The Tuskegee experiment with syphilis and shit like that, you wouldn't try that on a human. Like, people be like, why did they call us 3/5 of a man? Why didn't they treat us like men? Why didn't they treat us like humans and all of this shit? Because you were prisoners of war. You weren't just slaves, my nigga. This is why everybody keeps saying, like, you know, they sold us off into slavery. Like, that is not what happened. You want to know the whole story, bro? And this is why shit gets fucked up. Because the slaves that they got from Africa, right? The slaves that they got for Africa weren't the slaves that they put over here to work. They weren't. They were the Trojan horses. They were the Trojan horses that were able to help convert the prisoners of war. I'm doing a dramatic pause with that. Because you have to understand its full capacity. Every time they talk about the Moors that came from here, blah, blah, blah. Like when George Washington came over this bitch, he had Moors with him, Moorish people with him. But they don't tell you all of the pieces. They give you bits and pieces of the truth so you don't see the full absolute reality of what the fuck really happened. You feel what I'm saying? When the African people that came over here on ships, they weren't slaves, bro. They were slaves in the context of, you know, over there, they were, you know, indentured servants or whatever the case may be. And it was like, oh yeah, we sent y'all from Ghana and y'all came over here and we saw that, like, the story's being told wrong and its details being missing, being left out. There were faces that looked the same that came over to do the conversions. For the people that were the prisoners of war that were captured during the fight. I don't remember which episode it was, but it was definitely the season, I'm sure. We didn't just go to war with Europeans. We were jumped. We were jumped and fragmented on multiple levels. The only people that actually won the fight, well, we was all winning, all running the fade, blah, 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 boom, boom, boom. Those got pushed out west, whatever. But the ones who really won the fight was Haiti. Haiti is documented as the only ones who won. We keep talking about, oh, Haiti got their independence. Tell the story the right way. Don't tell it through their fantastical lens. Look at it from the real perspective. Haiti won. Haiti said, fuck that, nigga. Nah, we fighting. We fighting. That's why they don't fuck with Haiti. That's why, quote unquote, Haiti got their independence or whatever the case may be, blah, blah, blah. But to the core of it, the Caribbean islands, most of the Caribbean islands won. You feel me? Most of the southern states in America, what are considered the southern states, they lost. They lost. We had our fair share of dubs. Don't get me wrong. We had our fair share of dubs, but we got jumped. We got jumped. It wasn't just a one-on-one fight, nigga. But they fragmented us to make it look like the quote-unquote colonization did not happen to all of us. This is why the Louisiana Purchase was so fucking important. It was the Louisiana Purchase that was able to rewrite the history so much. The Louisiana Purchase was able to say that we were no longer indigenous people. The Louisiana Purchase was able to neutralize the languages that we speak to show that we spoke the same language as the Caribbean people. The Louisiana Purchase pretty much divided, quote unquote, the South area and shit and took away so much of the history that we were who we were. They've been trying to erase it for so long because they want to disconnect the ties from Haiti because the ties are the language. Creole is the power. Creole is the language, but even Creole has a connection because, Creole has French into it because of colonization. We beat the French ass. And when I say we, I'm speaking from the perspective of the Haitians that beat the French. They beat the fuck out of the French. They beat Napoleon in their ass, but we can't tell how you beat them because the answer is in Creole. The answer to how they got beat was in Creole. It's not in English. It's not in Spanish. It's in Creole. So we're not going to let you speak to each other, but we're going to erase the history so you can't tell how y'all won. Because if you tell how y'all won, y'all reclaim y'all power. And now we go back into what? The law of polarity. Now you can see this chaos and meet this chaos in equal and opposite manner according to how you're supposed to really use it. They're not gonna give you that though. They're not gonna give you that though. The Gullah Geechee, the motherfucking like the languages that we used to speak, like no language, no what is it? No lingua, no cultura. No language, no culture. But now we look at Haiti as, you know, Haiti, the Haitians, they demonic, worship the devil, they this and the third. They do worship the devil. Can't lie about that. They worship the devil of your enemy. Context matters. Vodun is, you know what I'm saying? It is the the spiritual practice of your enemy, of your enemy's enemy. So of course it would be demonic. I'd call some shit demonic too if I'm telling you what God is. But then when I understand the law of polarity, I have to now look into it contextually. How am I serving the same God as the very motherfucker who's oppressing me? Don't make no sense. It don't make no motherfucking sense. But tying it back to the Louisiana Purchase, because I don't want to miss that point that I was going to make with that. From the Caribbean islands, you know, once they made that Louisiana Purchase, everything below the Mississippi or whatever. No. It's not above because it goes from North Carolina down. So the southern states is why you consider them North Carolina, South Carolina, all of these things. Like from that border, Oklahoma, Texas, that just draw a line from North Carolina all the way to the top of Texas and go down. Those are the same people. That buying of that land from the French or whatever the case may be after the Haitians whooped the French ass. They took that land and they went on ahead and, you know, claimed it. But in the enslavements of those wars that were going on, we fighting three motherfuckers. We fighting the Spanish, we fighting the French, and we fighting the English. That fight is why we now look at it from a different perspective of I'm not black. Because again, we don't look at it as the skin. It's not. Like, it be niggas darker than me and shit talking about, I know black. What the fuck are you then, Pedro? The fuck are you? Nobody wants to claim it because of the colonization. But it's not colonization. It's war. It's warfare. We're prisoners of war. We have to look at it from a whole different perspective. And in order to make sure that the warfare maintains, the law of polarity is being used. Neutrality has to be met, but in order for neutrality to be met, the other side has to be a participant in making sure it's balanced. We don't even know that we're an inactive participant in our own destruction sometimes. And I'm not this. I don't know. We are our worst enemy. This is why we're our worst enemy. Because we're trying to be our oppressor's best friend. Why do they hate us? Let's just extend the hand. You cannot extend the hand of love to a motherfucker you're at war with. I don't know why y'all don't get that shit. We're at war still, nigga. This is just warfare that they don't have to fight us anymore. Periodically, when they see it starting to come together, this is why J. Edgar Hoover, and this was in 1970s, bro. He said, I fear the rise of a black messiah. Was it the 70s? I don't know, but J. Edgar Hoover said the shit. 78, yep. Because he said, I fear the rise of a black messiah who can spark the militant aspect of the people. Why would you fear the militant aspect being sparked? Why do they fear the militant so bad? Because they know we're at war. They're just not telling y'all that the war is still going on. When I tell motherfuckers and shit, like, they were like, yo, we need reparations. You cannot get reparations because the shit is still going on. They got reparations for the Holocaust because if Hitler would have won and the motherfuckers still, like, if the war never happened between Germany and the World War, whatever the case may be, there would not have been any reparations for the Jews, bro. You know why? Because they would have still been going through the war. Their war is done. Ours isn't. It's still going on. That's why they can't pay you reparations, because they're still doing the shit. I would have had to stop doing the shit, say, yo, you know what? My bad, bro. I fucked up. Now let me repair what. No, we're still destroying. We're still at war with you niggas. We ain't repairing. Like, would you stop in the middle of the beef, you beefing with some niggas, right? Would you stop in the middle of the beef and compensate them? No. You know why? Because now you have the fear that if I compensate them, they will be able to, what do you call it? I don't want to say ration up, but they will be able to recoup and be able to get things in the war. But we don't know that we're at war. They don't know. See, they know that some of us know we're at war. They know that. They know who's that's why they fear the militant-minded people, because it's like they understand us. They understand our culture. They understand everything. They know that reincarnation happens all the time. They know that our militant forces come back all the time. Tupac was one of the quintessential pieces to help me put a lot of this together. Tupac and Nipsey as a whole, but specifically Tupac. He was literally named after a war chief, right? Was it Aztec? I want to say it was the Aztec. Now, when you look at the Aztecs, we think of the Aztecs as some extinct motherfuckers and shit. So when you look at the history of an Aztec, you think it's an Indian that's a Native American that they show you on TV all the time. Them niggas look like me. Them niggas look like us. Them niggas was niggas. But they know we come back. They know we cycle back through this motherfucker as we were when we left. Tupac had the airways. Tupac had the airways. That's why they had to kill him. We fear the rise of a black messiah. We fear the militant that's supposed to come. We fear that. We fear that militant that is supposed to come back. Tupac was one of the militants that said, go to war, because we're already at war. Like, that's why motherfuckers couldn't understand a lot of his message, because they weren't from the warrior cloth. You got motherfuckers trying to discredit him now. You feel me? I ain't gonna say their names because I'm not gonna give them any credence, because I feel like it's bullshit that after all of this time, Tupac wasn't hard. Tupac wasn't this. Y'all niggas have a different perspective. He was dancing with Digital Underground. Like, that stops a nigga from pulling a fucking trigger, bro. Like, they like, well, he killed 2 cops. Well, they was undercover. It ain't like he knew they was cops anyway. There was 2 white men that was beating up a black man. You're missing the point. You're trying to see it as he didn't know that it was cops. He defended a black man on the war, in the grounds of the war, to defend itself. Even when and he stood on business every time he spoke. He said, I'm not speaking on violence. I'm speaking on self-defense and police brutality. There's a difference. They hated that shit. Because they know they're at war with us. We don't know it's a war going on. We don't know it's a war going on. We don't know that their war includes, the militant side of their war includes the police, includes the Army, the National Guard, the Marines, the Navy SEALs, and the Coast Guard. Oh, we got Bloods, Crips, Vice Lords, GDs, folks. Like, we don't know why we so wired to gangs and where our gangs even came from. But inviting niggas to cookouts, infiltrated and shit. You feel me? We have the same shit on the institutionalized side. We look at it from the criminalistic side. We do the same shit on our academic side. What are their gangs? The Greek letter organizations. What did we end up doing? Creating Greek letter organizations. Missed the whole point, nigga. Those were gangs too. Those were our gangs too. The Divine Nine and shit, but it's Greek letter. But it follows a lot of the same ritualistic practices that they follow, because it's the indoctrination. We on a whole different perspective, bro. We're in the middle of a fucking war that has never stopped, and it's never going to stop. And that's why I use Tupac, because when you can communicate on a mass level musically, that's why we don't want to sign any conscious rappers. We don't want to. We don't want that. We don't want that because one of you motherfuckers come like Pac again, we can't stop this shit. When the cop got killed because the dude screamed thug life, they said, Tupac, you were a thug. Like, thug life stood for the hate you give little infants fucks everybody, but not many people know that anymore. That's why it's discrediting when you see the people come up there and say, yo, Pac want a thug. He never claimed to be a thug. He said the thug life stood for the hate you give little infants fucks everybody. He was a warrior and knew that children, elderly, and women were off limits when it came to war. He even created the thug life codes. Why doesn't anybody know that? They think thug from the shit, oh, he was a gangster. He was this, that, and the third. He was the son of a Black Panther. He was the son of a Black Panther, bro. A lot of us keep reincarnating back into this motherfucker, but we come back ready for war. But we don't realize that a lot of our people gave up the war when we come back. So now we have to play the role a certain way. It's like, damn, I know that I got to have messengers, warriors, and thinkers. I got to lead the codes ahead of time. There's certain shit that I got to do to make sure we can fight the war a different way. But a lot of us don't know we at war. Because we think we were slaves. Changes your whole perspective when you put the details of the word on it. Now, let's tie all of this back in. Maybe I can start trying to wrap it up. Who knows? We'll let it flow. Let's wrap it back in from the beginning of the series. Divine oneness, vibration, correspondence, attraction. When you start off on a vibration of being a slave, bring it all the way up to where we are right now, to the law of polarity. How do you think you're going to move as a slave? When you're vibrating on a space where you where you are actively a prisoner of war, what polarity are you on now? It's different. It's different. When I say they're using the 12 laws against us, they're using the 12 laws against us. This ain't no mystical mumbo jumbo shit. Yeah, I may have been playing around and giving y'all bullshit examples all through the beginning of the shit. Like, but racism is the quintessential piece of that shit, and racism is war, my nigga. You think racism is just a dislike? No, racism is war. Racism is war. I seen this post where this woman, she was married to a white dude, or something like that, and then they got divorced, and the white dude cut her baby's hair off because they mixed or whatever. He cut all of her baby's hair off and sent her back. She's talking about, should I be mad? Yes, that was a declaration of war. That was a declaration of war, and you don't even see it. That was a declaration of war. You don't even see it. What do you think a lynching was? Those were declarations of war. Like Billie Holiday, when she did Southern Trees, Strange Fruit. Why did they not want her to sing that song? Because it tells the story. No, these are declarations of war when we hang y'all. We just trying to see if y'all gonna do something. You feel me? I seen this post in this conversation between a white dude and a black dude, and the black dude's asking the white dude, why do white people fear black people so much? He said, because with all of that y'all have gone through, he said, if any other race of people would have gone through that, we would have burned this motherfucker down a long time ago. And he said, because y'all haven't, when y'all do, it's going to be worse than anything we can ever imagine. And we just want reparations. We don't want revenge. We just want reparations. We don't want vengeance. We just want to be left the fuck alone. We don't want to be at war. But we want to acknowledge that we're still at war. Racism is not just them niggas disliking us. Racism is a declaration of war. It is a continual perpetuation of war. It's not hate. It's not hate. That's what kind of pisses me off with these niggas, bro. Because they be like, oh man, you shouldn't have hate in your heart. Those are hateful people. No, nigga, they're at war. They're at war, and we don't know we're at war. What's their phrase? All's fair in love and war. This goes back to the Roman Empire. If you listen to the episode that I was talking about the Roman Empire, we're at war with the Roman Empire, my nigga. The only people that the Roman Empire can't fade are melanated people. Yeah, Alexander the Great, they burned the books in Alexandria and all of that shit. You know why they was burning books? A lot of the books that they burn and a lot of shit that they keep in the Vatican, it defines that we're at war. It defines that we're at war. There's a book called Nubia, the Jewel of Kush, right? Where the Nubians had to keep coming to Egypt. See, this is the shit that gets me, because we look at Egypt and we make it such a grandiose type thing, right? Where we say Egypt was golden era, Mecca. Like we glorify Egypt so much, but we don't realize that Egypt was hard-headed. Nubia and Kush both told these niggas in Egypt, Kemet, do not teach the Greeks. Do not teach the Greeks. I often wondered why, because even in this day, because they're too barbaric to learn our information. It wasn't the Greeks that was too barbaric. It was the Greco-Roman affiliation. It was the Greco-Roman affiliation. Their unity. That's why they wasn't supposed to teach the Greeks, because although the Greeks were willing to learn, they were giving the information to barbarians that were planning to go to war with everybody. I'm doing a dramatic pause with that because you have to see that. Then it makes, now you can start to see, wow, that's why the Council of Nicaea was the prerequisite for the war that they were going to implement. Racism, religion, all of that shit goes hand in hand. We're going to enslave the world. After we beat them, we make them take our religion. But before we even infiltrate them, we send missionaries over to say, hey, will you take this laying down? Shaka Zulu, they said, if you don't convert to Christianity, you'll burn in hell. He said, where I'm from, we eat fire. Where I'm from, we eat fire. When a black man, now you couldn't threaten him with any other element. You had to threaten him with fire. But when he tells you that I'm not afraid of that element, I'm not afraid of that element, I eat that element. It changes how you have to approach them. And we look at Shaka Zulu and the Zulu Nation as the only, like, no, nigga, they met a lot of Shaka Zulus when they came over this motherfucker. They met a lot of Shaka Zulus when they came over this motherfucker, bro. They're not going to tell you that side of the story. Christians, the Romans were who Shaka Zulu and them were fighting. The Romans were who we were fighting. Like, we're at war with the Roman Empire still. Now, this is going to sound like a reach, and I'll break this down when I get to season 13, but I just plant to see now. It is the Roman Empire fighting with the Atlantean empires. Atlantis was never a lost city. El Dorado, the city of gold, all of that was representing the melanated people. But all of the melanated people from the Atlantean space came and colonized and created the six continents. Europe is the only continent. It's not one of the seven. Europe is a continent. According to their geography, you have 7, but there's only 6. Europe is not a continent. All of the continents begin and end with the letter A. Sit with that. I know I said I was reaching, but do the math. Europe is the only continent that starts and ends with the letter E. Doesn't start and end with the letter A. As the waters rose, I'll break that down in season 13. But the Atlantean Empire is fighting the Roman Empire. That's it. That's it. Now, the different variations of white people, where you have the Irish, the Scottish, all of these different things, they had to create their own offshoots to try to, make shit balanced, or whatever the case may be. Polarity. Because our offshoots were the Caribbeans, the Northern Americans, the Southern Americans, the Australians, Antarcticans. It was too cold up there, but that is a land that we had at one particular point. You feel me? I discussed that again when it comes. You feel me? Asians, the original Asians, the Asiatic people in Africa, all of these continents are where we were. And we went to war. We went to war. With every element, we whooped their ass. That's why every element is now poison, except fire. And you can't poison fire. Fire is too free. Nobody can control fire. Nobody can harness fire like that, in the sense that it has an element that you can actually use to manipulate. So they use fire. That's how they beat us with firepower. You feel me? But it all came down to this law of the universe being at play. Left naturally, we would have wiped them out a long time ago, and we would not have had to go to war. We were wiping them out without any war. Simply our men impregnating their women. Not forcefully. Not none of that shit. Because nature naturally falls to dominant genetics. These niggas are not just beefing with black people, they're beefing with nature and what's natural. You feel what I'm saying? This ain't no accident, bro. This ain't no accident. This is the law of the universe at play. And this is a war. They're not at war the way we think. They're not at war the way we think they're at war. Because we keep thinking it has to be continual. It has to be ongoing. They're not like, we're beyond war now. We're at warfare. This is why this is the point that I was getting in when I hopped into the Roman side, or whatever the case may be. All's fair in love and war. All's fair in love and war. That is a Roman epithet. And we wonder why love don't work. We wonder why Roman antics. We wonder why everything is so fucked up. Because we lost the war. We've been indoctrinated. We've been assimilated, integrated into the culture of the people that we're at war with. You may not call them Romans. You may not look at it from the Roman Empire. You ain't gone back that far. I ain't tripping on that part. Fuck all that. You're at war, and racism is how that war is made. It's not an accident, bro. It's not an accident at all. But you're afraid of what the reality is coming into. So now it's like, we're in the last days of the last days. Now I'm going to give you this religion. I'm going to give you this and say, this war was coming because of this. You always hear people say this is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. It is. But what is a spiritual war? You're trying to fight a spiritual war religiously. This is why this law of the universe is always violated. Because you're trying to fight a spiritual war religiously. I'm going to pray, P-R-A-Y, for the people who pray for me, P-R-E-Y. I said this in the jam session. We praying with the A, they praying with the E. We wade in the water, but won't play with the heat. What the fuck? When it's down to blue and red, we don't give a fuck. But when it comes to black and blue, we don't bruise it up. Why is police brutality what police brutality is? Because you're at war, my nigga. We're only going to fuck with your warriors. We make sure all of your warriors, we're going to make sure all of your warriors are in ghettos, in the projects. We know where the warriors at. We know where we sectioned them off at. We know where we quarantined them off. We know where we put the warriors at. We know this shit. We know where we put the whole warrior class in projects, in fields. The warriors didn't go in the house. But now the divide and conquer shit happened. Because now when you start bringing niggas in the house, you got the light-skinned niggas and shit like that. It's like, oh, you got the warriors now. We at war, my nigga. We never stopped being at war. This is the one war in history that they don't want to add to it. Because they tell you it's colonialism. Oh, the settlers came. They was coming, this was manifest destiny. You know, nigga, this was war. This was war. And this is why the masculine essence keeps being what it's going to be. And it keeps being attacked the way that it's attacked. Because, again, it's analysis and deconstruction. I had a conversation with somebody. Hopefully, these words don't get found out through AI. But whatever, man. I don't give a fuck no more. I done put out enough work. My seeds are planted. It is what it is. You feel me? My old page got shut down. I was telling somebody, I was like, yeah, man, the government and shit was watching me, bro. Nigga, the government wasn't watching you. You ain't nobody, this, that, and the third. I was like, you think that because I'm not a face. You think that because of I don't have the affiliations, like, and that's the biggest fear they have. I said, they've been watching me since So Frail 1 dropped. You feel what I'm saying? And the moment that I knew I was being watched was when the moment I knew that I was being watched was when So Frail 1 dropped, right? When So Frail 1 dropped, it was doing good.